Imagine a Venn diagram with the world's best practices in an iterative culture, meaning nothing's perfect. It's all getting better over time with data, with specialization. Imagine if we took the best birth practice, right? The best protocols of the best water birth. And we combine that with the best practices in art and artistic engagement for all children, for all people that want to experience some sense of life. With the best permaculture and agricultural practices, with the best commuting protocols. Imagine walking to work, and not walking through a bad neighborhood, walking through one of the most beautiful gardens. Imagine the best death that you can imagine. What is death like? How do you want to participate in the death of the people you love the most? How do you want others to participate in your death? How do you want your death to inform your life? What is the best practice around that? Imagine being able to volunteer, not doing some menial chore that has no connection with your strength, but to volunteer in such a way that the parts of you that are the most you are given space to develop and are harnessed, and you're able to see a visceral connection between the love that you craft with your strength and the effect it has on other people's lives. Imagine eating dinner every single day in community, right? A routine that helps you come alive. Imagine knowing that your life is amongst the most sustainable lives on the bleeding edge of sustainability on the planet today. Imagine community parenting at its best, the very best practices for education, for safety, for health, for relationship building, for preparing for a meaningful life. Now, these are just a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now imagine 20 other metrics, 20 other paradigms, 20 other facets of life. Imagine the most beautiful smells, the most beautiful vision. If we took the 5 senses and created a montage of beauty to where there wasn't this distinct border between function and form, between art and function, but it came together with sight, with touch, with sound, with taste. Imagine your sensory environment being curated towards optimal, right? And what we get is a Venn diagram. Now, this is easy to imagine with, $2 or $3 million environments, right? You can go to various places in Bali and create bits of this, right? Or, the place you'd like to be, you can create bits of this for 1 or 2 or 3 people with a few $1,000,000. But imagine being able to create this with less than $125,000, right? 25 times less expensive. And imagine the democracy, the types of people that are able to come based on being drawn rather than being based on having the small subset of jobs or circumstances that allow such a thing to be afforded, right? That's where Medicina is in the middle. It is an evolving recipe, an evolving set of code of protocols that are emerging out of the data. Now, you cannot control people. You cannot control life. What you can do is practice a set of protocols, a set of recipes that create a probability field around death, around birth, around eating, around healing trauma and PTSD, around friendship, around love, around safety, right? You can't control the world, but you can create a probability field. For example, all electric, no combustion engine. It curates a soundscape that is much quieter. It curates a smellscape that is more healthy, right? And you can't stop people from getting hurt 100% of the time in 100% of the ways, but you can partition the community space and the vehicle space, right? The electric vehicles in a small area and all of the rest for walking, for engaging. You can't force people to be friends, but you can create a routine where it is easier to learn, to understand, to see, and to empathize than any other place in the world. You can create a cult, a culture, right? A habit, a pattern that is evolving, not through dogmatism, but with data, to be the most beautiful place on earth. The most beautiful place on earth is a place that is conducive, that has 95% odds of beauty, truth, and goodness coming to life in that environment. And that is Medicina. A synergy, a confluence of probability by bringing together the best practices of friendship, the best practices of sensory beauty, the best practices of sustainability, of safety, of living and being born well, of dying well, the best practices of contribution and of meaning. Right? We are all free beings. And yet the kind of people that such a probability attracts are people ready for grace, willing to become the best versions of themselves, ready for success. This is about the artistry, alchemy, and science of probability. A probability field is respected, is created, is realized with understanding by looking at data and bringing structure, bringing form, and honoring the forms, the flows that create grace, that create well-being. In the dimensions area of this project, you can see probability field after probability field after probability field being created. And my question to you is, what's the best practice? Like, if you take a domain of work or a domain of money or a domain of eating, what does beauty look like to you in that space? And then how far, right? How far beyond or behind is the current protocols at Medicina relating to your ideal, right? The ideal is the dream. The ideal is the future. It's what informs the path, right? And we cannot live in an ideal world, but we can make choices that take us closer. And for me, as the architect, as the artist of Medicina, it's a confluence of everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, everything that I've experienced as a starting point, right? With an initial goal of being 10 times better with 10 times less, right? To create 1,000% higher quality of life with 10% of the time, money, and natural resources it takes to create a more conventional life. Thank you for your interest in participating. Blessings on your scientific experiment, your scientific impulse to create the life that you want. And curiosity to see, is there an intersection, and how and what that looks like. I'm Dane Rose, and I hope to see you in Medicina.